life in many ways is not what most think it to be. You know, there's so much about life and death and how it frames a time when one can exercise in a physical body, exercise their minds, exercise their emotions, exercise their love. And it is framed between two events, birth and death. And these are very big events in most spiritual traditions. Because what really happens, people think, is in between, but that's not exactly true, because you're eternal. No, not your bodies. Your bodies aren't. You have to drop them periodically and take on another one. And you don't really remember that much from what you did in the prior experience. And my dear friends, that's as it should be. Because if you think, let's say, let me just give you a really silly example, but I think it will illustrate here. Let's say you have one life where you are very rich, very powerful. Maybe you're the, well, we'll say king. Not a lot of places don't have kings anymore, but let's say you're the king. And let's say it's an old style king where you collected all the tax money to run the kingdom from your subjects. They were called subjects, weren't they? They bowed and scraped to you when you walked by. They kissed the ground. But let's say you had this life of opulence where everything you ever wanted, you could have. And then from the soul's perspective, in order to get some balance, in your next life, you are a beggar. Because you need to see both sides of the coin, you see? Now, if a person could remember the prior life, what do you think would happen? Would the beggar get on with learning the lessons of the beggar? Or would he or she simply spend the whole lifetime reminiscing about how good it used to be and how it's not that way anymore? I mean, some of these things are sort of human tendencies, but you have to experience on both sides of every coin. It's what makes you wise. Now, you don't remember lifetime to lifetime, but that doesn't mean your experience doesn't serve you well. It can still serve you whether you have conscious memory of it or not. And so I think a good exercise is to do a little creative, what's a creative imagery really? And it isn't, we say, I will remember when. But maybe you don't remember, maybe you make it all up, it still works. I remember when the love I felt for the mountains was so great that, and you fill it in the blanks. I remember when my love for chickens was so great that. I remember when my love for humanity was so great that. And in those big lives, usually you gave a lot up because love does that. It demands that of you. Love will test you. The ego won't. It will just try to gratify itself and give you what it thinks it wants. Love is not that way. Love will test you in every single area of your life. It will show you where you're not loving. It will show you where you're not kind. And you may be someone who's very kind to others and not very kind to yourself. It still counts. That is a place of non-kindness. On the other hand, you may be someone who's very kind, even indulgent to yourself, and don't care very much about other people. If love arrives, it will show you that. It will test you in every way possible. It's the nature of love. Can you love this much? Can you love this much? Can you love this much? Can you love a little more? Some of you who have experienced, maybe studied with Taoist practices, See, one of the things the Taoists do is they're very connected to the earth, to physical reality. And they use physical or phenomenal reality to take them to deeper and broader spiritual awarenesses. And so there are all these breathing experiences or exercises that one practices. And you breathe so fully that your lungs are actually hurting. They're so full of air. And then you hold it. It's uncomfortable. Then you take 4 more sniffs. You hold it. Take 2 more sniffs. You hold it. You take 1 more sniff. And then you very slowly release it. That's kind of like love. How much love can you hold? As much until the lungs hurt, until your heart hurts. It's so full of love. And then 4 sniffs more. And then 2 sniffs more. Then just 1. But always go for more. And I find these kinds of practices very, very powerful. There's for what they technically teach, which is how to circulate qi in your body, how to heal yourself, all of that. But then there is what they teach at more subtle levels. And ultimately, it's all about love. Even if it's not called that, you see. Do you know that more songs and more poetry have been written about love than any other human theme? Now, why do you think that is? Because it's what it's where you've come from. It's who you are, and it's what you're trying to materialize in your life, manifest right now. Is a love so big, a love big enough to light the whole sky. As I said, Rumi was an ecstatic, not just a poet. He was a mystic. And he has this one little verse that is just really lovely. He says, "In your light, I learn how to love. In your beauty, how to write poems. You dance inside my chest where no one sees you. But sometimes I do, and that sight becomes this art." Isn't that what everyone wants to know and see, the divine dancing in their chest, around the heart, of course, but it probably involves the lungs because they're not very far away. Can you breathe love? Yes. The goal is to become love. Love said to me, "There is nothing that is not me. Be silent." What a beautiful way to relate to love, which is everything there is. And yet it's not always perceptible. Certainly it is not perceptible in the guns of war. It is not perceptible in harming one another. It is not perceptible when one feels like if there's to be any peace in his country, he has to give up its freedom. Be grateful you are not all facing such high stakes. Because maybe, because you don't face those decisions, maybe you then can create a force of love so big that it will engulf the entire planet and ease the stress of those whose karmic place in history is to make those kinds of decisions, to live with the consequences.